You're listening to the Financial Source podcast on YouTube.
Welcome to the Financial Source podcast. Today we are diving straight into a remarkable, high-stakes collision between an abrupt geopolitical pivot in Washington and the most crucial economic data release of the month.
And that pivot involves Venezuela. The narrative there has shifted almost overnight from, imminent military action to a strategic long-term economic partnership.
A partnership centered on U.S. control over one of the world's largest oil reserves.
Right. And this fundamental restructuring is happening just as the market is holding its breath for today's U.S. non-farm payrolls report.
Which will, of course, dictate market direction for weeks to come. We'll be breaking down the specifics of this Venezuelan move, including a promised $100 billion investment, and how it immediately creates tension with U.S. domestic shale drillers.
And we'll also look at why this is driving the dollar's strength against the yen, all while the risk of a Supreme Court ruling on tariffs hangs over everything.
This is about synthesizing these complex, interwoven forces so you have the essential context.
Let's unpack it.
Okay. Let's start with this monumental shift in foreign policy, because dramatic really doesn't quite capture it.
Not at all. I mean, we're hearing that President Trump personally canceled a second planned attack on Venezuela.
And instead, the entire administration pivots toward this long-term strategic economic play. It's a complete 180.
It is, and what's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the proposal. We're not talking about simple stabilization aid. We're talking about an announced investment pledge of at least $100 billion from U.S. companies.
$100 billion. That's the financial weight Washington is throwing behind this.
Exactly. This isn't just a political change. It's a structural energy market reengineering.
So beyond that huge headline number, what are the actionable goals here? What is the mechanism by which the U.S. intends to actually control this supply?
Well, the mechanism is really displacement and a kind of vertical integration. Officials are being pretty explicit about two main targets. First, ending China's deeply discounted access to Venezuelan crude. And second, pushing Russia, specifically their state oil company Rosneft, completely out of the market.
So it's about boxing out two major rivals.
Absolutely. Russia has significant debt and supply agreements tied up there, and the U.S. basically intends to use its financial backing to simply buy them out or just undercut them completely.
It's a high-stakes energy diplomacy game. But is this just about getting any oil? Or is there something specific about Venezuelan crude?
That's where the analysis gets really sharp. It's about a specific kind of oil. Venezuela is famous for its heavy, sour crude.
Right, which our Gulf Coast refineries are built for.
Precisely. The refineries in Texas and Louisiana are purpose-built to process this exact type of oil, and they've struggled for years without a steady supply.
So if the U.S. can facilitate a rapid return of that supply,
which the Energy Secretary suggested could rise sharply within just 18 months, then it creates a perfectly tailored, U.S.-overseen feedstock source for our own refinery complex.
And that reduces dependency on Canada or the Middle East, and it probably helps the administration keep prices at the pump lower for consumers.
It's a huge strategic win. But you also mentioned tension. And you can't have a sudden surge of this crude without upsetting the domestic energy picture.
This is where it gets really interesting. The immediate clash with U.S. shale.
Absolutely. This raises a very important question about conflicting interests that the administration now has to manage.
Because the domestic shale drillers, especially in the Permian Basin, they're focused on light, sweet crude.
And they're already struggling with capital discipline and maintaining output. So they've warned that a flood of cheap Venezuelan barrels, even if it's a different type of crude, sends a profoundly negative signal to their own market.
So they're basically arguing that Washington is sacrificing the long-term health of U.S. energy independence.
Which they pioneered.
Exactly, which they pioneered, all for a short-term geopolitical win and, lower gas prices.
Precisely. And they are already lobbying hard against this. They see the administration's policy as directly undermining their entire investment thesis. It creates this fascinating domestic battleground.
A battle where foreign policy and domestic energy economics are completely at odds.
Yeah, and if you're an investor, you need to watch every statement from both the Gulf Coast refiners and the Permian producers to see who's winning that fight.
Okay, let's pivot now, because this geopolitical oil story isn't happening in a vacuum. It is colliding head-on with the most anticipated macro release of the month.
The December U.S. non-farm payrolls report due out today.
And the uncertainty around these job numbers is fundamentally dictating currency positioning right now, isn't it?
It's the critical link. The Venezuela news eased crude prices, which is, good for inflation. But the jobs data, that tells us about underlying economic strength and, crucially, the path of Federal Reserve interest rates.
And recent labor figures have been pretty resilient, which has eased fears of a sharp slowdown.
Right, which encourages the market to anticipate a steadier rate path from the Fed. That's why we're seeing some modest long positioning in the dollar.
Okay, for our listeners, when you say long positioning, what does it actually mean in this context? Why is the dollar firming up ahead of the report?
Sure. So being long, the dollar just means traders and large funds are buying and holding the dollar, betting that its value will go up against other currencies.
And they're doing that now because
Market expectations are for a strong enough jobs report that reinforces the Federal Reserve's higher for longer rate stance. If rates stay high in the U.S., the dollar becomes an incredibly attractive asset globally. Traders are just pre-positioning for that.
And this dollar strength is putting pressure everywhere. But the yen seems to be the clear underperformer. The dollar-yen pair is pushing substantially higher. Why is the yen so uniquely vulnerable?
This is a perfect illustration of what we call policy divergence.
The gap in central bank policy.
Exactly. Think of it as a gravitational pull. The U.S. Federal Reserve has significantly higher interest rates. Meanwhile, the Bank of Japan is signaling it is in absolutely no rush to tighten its own policy. Reports suggest they're keeping rates on hold this month.
So the U.S.-Japan rate gap is just huge. Japan is still essentially at zero, while the Fed is elevated.
Right. And that massive differential means global capital flows out of the low-yielding yen and into the high-yielding dollar. The yen becomes a funding currency for these carry trades.
And until the Bank of Japan gives a concrete signal of tightening, this trend continues.
It's structural. It's tied directly to central bank mandates. It's really the dominant theme in foreign exchange right now.
And the euro is also soft, but it seems to be more of a dollar story than anything happening in Europe.
It's purely gravitational pressure from the dollar. There's no significant European catalyst that's strong enough to overcome the anticipation around the U.S. payrolls data. The market is just waiting.
Okay, shifting from data risk to policy risk. Trade remains this looming source of volatility that markets can't ignore, specifically a potential U.S. Supreme Court decision on tariffs.
This is a silent risk, but it's a massive one. Tariffs have been a central pillar of this administration's economic strategy. The president has credited them for shrinking the trade deficit.
So if the Supreme Court were to challenge or overturn the legal basis for those tariffs,
it would instantly reintroduce profound volatility into global supply chains and trade rules. You could see overnight repricing in everything from commodities to tech stocks.
it really highlights that trade policy isn't just rhetoric, it's a core lever on the global economy.
And these trade frictions aren't just a U.S. issue. I mean, look at Asia. We're seeing reports of Chinese customs delays impacting specific Japanese products.
Right, the non-tariff barriers.
Exactly. It's regulatory and administrative pressure. It's a way to express regional disagreements without a headline tariff war, but it keeps supply chain managers on edge.
And that uncertainty is what drives meetings like the one scheduled for next week in Washington. Japan's finance minister is meeting U.S. counterparts specifically to discuss rare earth supply chains.
Which is a clear reminder that strategic trade issues, the things that power modern technology and defense, are firmly back in focus.
So we've discussed data risk with NFP, policy risk with tariffs, but there's still this persistent, acute geopolitical military risk, even after the Venezuela de-escalation.
Absolutely. The war premium is still there. Just look at the Middle East. The rhetoric is heating up significantly.
We saw President Trump warn that the U.S. would hit Iran hard if protesters were killed.
And Iran's supreme leader responded with defiance, accusing the U.S. and Israel of fueling the unrest.
On top of that, you have ongoing Israeli operations in Gaza and warnings that Hezbollah is rearming with Iranian backing. It all combines to keep that risk temperature very elevated.
Right. And it's not just the Middle East. Tensions in Eastern Europe remain acute following reports of a Russian drone attack on Kyiv.
Plus, that overarching layer of strategic uncertainty from Trump's comments about the U.S.-Russia nuclear treaty. These aren't just local conflicts. They inject instability into the entire global backdrop.
So given all these variables, the Venezuela pivot, NFP pressure, military tensions, trade friction, how is risk appetite holding up? Are investors buying or are they hiding?
Well, they're definitely holding their breath, keeping their powder dry, you could say. European equities are a bit firmer following gains in Asia, which suggests a constructive mood initially.
But U.S. equity futures are tentative.
Very tentative ahead of the payrolls release. The S&P 500 is still near its highs, but the positioning is fundamentally defensive. Nobody wants to be caught on the wrong side of this data.
And that caution is perfectly reflected in safe havens. Gold is just trading sideways.
Consolidating. It's waiting for confirmation. Investors aren't making aggressive bets on gold until they see both the payrolls print and a clearer signal on that tariff decision.
The price action is just screaming uncertainty, not fear or exuberance.
Although copper is providing a small flicker of optimism. It's rebounding slightly.
Which is likely tied to that firmer risk sentiment in Europe and, copper's links to the longer-term electrification themes. But again, conviction is very limited until we see those key catalysts.
So ultimately, this means every single asset, from currencies to crude to copper, is hostage to two major forces right now.
The short-term impact of today's NFT data and the long-term structural tension created by this new Venezuelan energy policy. The market is trying to price in a future where U.S. policy is actively colliding with U.S. economic reality.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of this? We've seen an immediate repricing of risk in oil, a powerful dollar trade based on that policy divergence, and a high-stakes moment for risk defined by U.S. labor data.
It means that while the conflict risk in Venezuela has been temporarily replaced by an economic play, the tension between global supply goals and domestic U.S. shale economics, that's going to be a major theme for years.
The most actionable knowledge here today is understanding that policy divergence driving the dollar. If the non-farm payrolls report surprises significantly to the upside, that dollar strength could accelerate and just overwhelm everything else.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought. If today's NFP numbers come in really hot, forcing the Federal Reserve to signal even higher rates for longer, the resulting dollar strength might become so powerful that it makes most U.S. exports, including our own shale oil, too expensive on the global market.
So it would effectively do what cheap Venezuelan crude intends to do.
But through monetary policy alone. A fascinating possibility. Appreciate you tuning in for this deep dive into the financial forces defining the week.
We truly value you listening to our analysis. Join us again next time for more insights right here on the Financial Source Podcast.